We convey restricted goods, material and personnel on a regular basis to points throughout Canada, increasingly down in the States, and in fact as far afield as South America. If we had the legs, we would be going to Europe much more often than we do right now. Having been there, by which I mean on the ground waiting for help from some RCMP colleagues, there is nothing more gratifying than being on the ground. The wheels have come off in the community. You're by yourself in the far isolated north. You want some help. There's nothing more gratifying than seeing that RCMP and my day Twin Otter, or currently a Pilatus, flying in with additional police officers. It's just a really neat feeling. As I mentioned earlier on, we operate 13 Pilatus. The needs for our Pilatus, our specifications are really, really simple. Single pilot, single engine, 30,000 feet, and a large cargo door, which the Pilatus happens to have. It's a 52-inch door. Slide a skidoo, slide a coffin, move people. It's really, really good. Those are the very simple requirements that we have of our aircraft right now. When we switched, of course, from the Twin Otters down to the Pilatus, you can just imagine the hue and cry that we went through. As of today, we have completed over 100,000 hours of maintenance-free, flying-free issues with the Pilatus. Thank you very much, Tim, you're a gentleman. There was one issue up in Yellowknife. It wasn't the fault of the Pilatus. The AME zigged when he should have zagged. But setting that particular situation apart, 100,000 trouble-free hours. That's an amazing record over the last 9 or 10 years. The province of Manitoba is so very pleased with the use of the RCMP aircraft that they're looking to actually reopen the air section that we used to have in Thompson, Manitoba. At one time, about 9-10 years ago now, we had 2 Twin Otters in Manitoba, one in Winnipeg, one in Thompson. They flew about 2,500 hours a year. Really good thing. Best thing to do is get rid of 2 of them and buy 1 Pilatus and think the same amount of work is going to get done. So now we find ourselves all these years later, we're actually looking to purchase our 14th Pilatus, our 14th aircraft, and reopen the detachment in Thompson. The good thing is that we kept the damn hangar. The next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll accept our newest Pilatus, Mike Papa Echo, which will be going up to Prince George. And that'll be the start of the renewal strategy for the whole of the Pilatus fleet. We're actually in the midst of a process right now whereby I'm assessing the Pilatus fleet. I would be silly to go out and automatically buy 13 or 14 Pilatus to replace Pilatus. I've got to be sure that there's no emerging technologies, which there aren't right now. But I'm also going to be quite sure that the Pilatus is filling the needs of the clients that are out there. My gut tells me in most instances it will be the Pilatus because it's what we need and what we can afford. Always that balance. But it may be that we might end up with a King Air in Moncton. We've also gone full circle, or perhaps backwards, as some of you might say, in that we've just purchased a new to us Turbo Beaver, Mike Papa Charlie, which is stationed in Prince George. There was a tremendous hue and cry about that, but we've got the aircraft, and so far so good. One of the interesting things about this, most of you probably would have seen, or some of you will have seen the shots of MPC. I was out there just about a year ago now, I guess, and one of the complaints that the AME have is the difficulty in washing the aircraft. You now notice that they're all white. With the fuel, it's putting it most eloquent, it's a bugger to keep the damn thing clean. So the engineers are always concerned about that, and they were basically saying, here we go again, you're going to paint it white. I said, wait a minute, it's 1937, 2007, let's go retro. Let's paint it the blue and the gold that we used to have. And boy, they latched onto that. It was wonderful. The purists in the room will say, but the blue's not dark enough, and you're right. I came up with the idea, I left the execution of the guys in BC. That's it from my perspective. Focused future. In the post 9/11 world, which believe me is a very real and different world, the need for an enhanced RCMP presence on the Canadian-US border is obvious. This is particularly apparent in British Columbia, where border security and the need for strong interdiction operations are of paramount importance. On a really good day, we might have 1 aircraft perhaps patrolling the border. On any one day in that BC stretch, the Americans have at least 3 Black Hawk helicopters with the ability to have tone, which is a little bit different from what I've got. The Lower Mainland Traffic Safety Helicopter, an EC-120B, or for the more efficiently minded, Air 1, is our newest acquisition. It was funded by a number of funding organizations, the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, the RCMP, and a number of smaller police forces throughout the Lower Mainland of BC. Its primary mandate is the reduction of car thefts, which has actually been reduced by 35% since the aircraft started. Fine. One of the best things about that airborne type of law enforcement with a helicopter is the prevention of accidents. You're all aware of the phenomena where police officers are chasing a stolen car, and if it's not done properly, someone ends up being killed. Over the years, we've established a protocol whereby if I'm chasing a bad guy in a car, I immediately have to liaise with a senior officer somewhere thereabouts, and as I'm doing my monologue, past 5th, past 6th, red light, traffic, school on the left, he will determine, as an impartial sort of source, where we should be going with this chase. Is it worth continuing? Is it getting too dangerous? Should we terminate it? I'm not generally the one to make the call because I know that if I don't catch this guy, my manhood is at stake. So that's not who you want making the decision about the chases. So now we've got the ability to have this member who is removed from the scene to make the crash. Make the crash. Yeah, you go do that. But so to make the call to terminate the chase, not the crash. How much better then is it to actually have the helicopter in the air above? I get the weekly reports. This thing is just doing miraculous work. But I get the weekly reports in any number of high-speed chases that have been terminated and stopped. And I'm just going to ask Tim in a moment what kind of time frame we've got, because I do have a little video we could perhaps show. But the essence of this particular discussion is that once the helicopter has a visual, the helicopter observer will say, terminate, terminate, terminate. So all the ground units immediately turn off their lights and sirens and back to the speed limit. So the helicopter has the eye. He follows the bad guy. He can vector the police cars in at a safe speed in the whole 9 yards. And the wonderful thing is, of course, that most of these bad guys don't even know the helicopter. Oh, we beat them. And then at some point, that great big daylight, sunlight light comes on. And, you know, it just lights them up. It's just a marvelous thing. I'll tell a story that has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with aviation and everything to do with police dogs. I was stationed up in Iqaluit for about 3.5 years, up to about a year ago, and at one point we had a dog handler and the dog in from Montreal. And at one point the dog and the handler were sitting in the back of the mess having coffee. And one of the guys starts talking about the dog, and the dog handler says, well, yeah, he's a good dog, but he failed his aggressiveness test here a little while ago. So dumbass Mountie starts, you know, calling the dog down. I mean, what kind of dog is a dog that fails aggressiveness test? I mean, this is a busy place. Why the hell have you got this dog up here? So the dog handler says, well, you know, you could help. We could actually do some training now. So of course, exactly. So we get the coconut mat out, the whole 9 yards, and they do the scenario and all this kind of stuff. And the members about my size, not as bright as I am, standing at the front of the mess, just in line with the hallway. And, you know, the command goes and the dog knocks this member base over tea kettle down the hall, around the corner, just chews this thing all day. I thought you said he showed his aggressiveness test. Yeah, I did. He was too aggressive. I love that story. Okay, we fly in excess of 23,000 hours a year. The MPN, our Pilatus up in Iqaluit, flies over 1,450 hours a year now. It's probably one of our busiest units. Let me just think here. Okay, I think I touched on we partnered with Corrections Canada, CAHS, to absorb their flight departments. In fact, that's exactly right. I touched earlier on that we've taken CAHS' aircraft, but we also absorbed Corrections Canada PC-12.
Yeah.